Hey, it's Jeremy from Jeremy.net, comic book artist, writer, creator, and I share my creative process here with you online. If you'd like to support this channel, get additional bonus live streams every month, see my artwork before anybody else, be able to read on comics for free, you can go to patreon.com and become a patron. You can go over there at patreon.com/GERIMI. It's patreon.com/Jeremy. For as little as $2 a month, you get access to all that and more. Patreon.com. Thank you. I greatly appreciate that. And great thanks to all of my current patrons. If you'd like to keep up with what I'm working on, best of my social media posts, you can see work in progress animated GIFs. I also share a few comic book pages every month on there and a little bit of what I'm working on these days, what I'm reading, what I'm watching. You can sign up for my monthly newsletter at newsletter.jeremy.net. And you also get a free digital sketchbook for subscribing. And if you would like to purchase physical copies of my comics, or if you read digitally on Kindle or Comixology, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. They'll forward you to my Amazon author pages. You can pick up books like my first comic is a standalone graphic novel called Eye of the Gods. It's a psychological thriller about a man cursed with visions he cannot control. Or you can pick up volume 1 of my current comic book, Morning Star. Lucifer's Fall from Heaven told as a Western. This volume contains issues 1 through 4 out of an 8-issue series. And additionally, as I mentioned last week, you can now also pick up the final issue of Morning Star issue 8. It's available directly from my website only, in print at jeremy.net. That'll take you to my my Store Envy shop. You can pick up the issues 5, 6, and 7 of Morning Star. All right. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me here. And I see Trevor's already in the chat. Said Skull. Good to see you, Trevor. Skull. All right. So, speaking of things that you can pick up at jeremy.net, I wanted to share with you the finished version of the Medusa piece I've been working on. I call it Medusa's Shadow, or I call it Gorgon Shadow. So, you know, I've been working on this piece, sharing it over the course of the live stream, and I just wanted you guys to get a look at the finished piece here. So, again, I'm pretty happy with the way that this piece came out, and you can get it as an art print. It comes in what are the sizes? You can get it as a 8x10, a 11x14, and I think the last size is 16x20. Anyway, you can pick up all of those at jeremy.net. In fact, there is a link in the description if you guys want to pick it up. See Amar's in the chat. See Amar's in the chat. Much love to Amar and Amar's. Thanks for showing up, guys. All right. So, and also, top of the live stream, I forgot to say, Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. Hope you're getting some love from your family, being treated right, and to earn all that great love. So, Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. And let's see here. So, I have been thinking, I started a new piece. And this one is just going to be a piece of fan art. I had put a poll out a few weeks back for what piece of fan art you guys wanted me to draw. And the overwhelming answer was Snake Eyes versus Elektra. So this is my rough sketch for this piece. And I started it, in the middle of the week. And, unfortunately, it's one of those things where I didn't want to wait because I had the energy and I was ready to start and get going working on this piece. But I really do like to start out with the thumbnailing phase while people are watching, only because I think that's the phase. Those early decisions are kind of the most interesting ones, where you're kind of trying to figure out what you're going to do, moving pieces around. The Snake Eyes pose went through a lot of different changes in terms of what I was doing with his hands, the position of the legs, and I'm still sort of futzing around with Elektra. I haven't even drawn her face yet, and I do plan to put like a little frame around this. And there was also something that I designed. I'm not sure if it will make the piece too cluttered, so I may end up leaving it out. But I took the symbol that's on Snake Eyes' shoulder, and I put it inside of a hand symbol, and I was going to try and see if I can have a way to have that ghosted in the background. So it's kind of like, the hand within, Snake Eyes' symbol within the hand, Elektra being an assassin of the hand. But I think sometimes you have to sacrifice cool design ideas for clarity, because if I were doing this as a print, which I'm not, then I probably would be able to just Photoshop it in there and do it in a color that would show, that wouldn't conflict with the foreground characters, but would still show up. And in this case, I'm just going to do this layout sketch, and then I'm going to print it out and ink over the sketch. So it's only going to be a traditional sketch piece that I'm going to make available for sale. I'm not going to do a print of it because I don't own these characters. So, but that's where the piece stands right now. I think that the concept of the symbol in the background is a cool idea, but we'll have to do without. I think that if it was just a bust of the two characters' faces, that might work. In this case, it will not. Let's see. In the chat here, I see Amara said, I found out I might have a dissociation disorder as an autistic person. Well, I would say I'm sorry to hear that, but I think it's good to find out these things, to know them and be able to deal with them in whatever is necessary. I mean, hopefully that isn't something that is too much of a roadblock for you. It sounds like you have a very creative and fulfilling life and fulfilling relationships in your life. So hopefully that does not, finding this news out, I hope, is just something that helps you find better ways to navigate through the world and isn't a roadblock or an impediment. Let's see. Trevor also says skull to Amar and Amaris. She says, I have the symptoms, but they're running more tests on me. Well, I hope that whatever comes out from these tests is positive news and helps you live your best life. All right. Trying out my Apple Pencil here. I don't know where my little gloves are that keep the screen from reacting to my hand so much. I think I was drawing in the other room and I left it in there. So, yeah, that sucks. But hey, it happens. What are you gonna do? So, really, I've been messing around with the Elektra piece a lot. In fact, I've got a couple of other layers here. What I tend to do is just work on a layer until I grabbed some reference of an Uzi, so I could have Snake Eyes' Uzi just strapped to him while he's using his sword two-handed. I just, it's such a notable part of Snake Eyes' character. I wanted to keep that in there. But let me see. There are some earlier versions of this. I tend to just create a new layer whenever I want to modify and change in piece. I'll just work, then create a new layer and keep working. Some people will create new layers and continue drawing on top of the other one, whereas I will just duplicate the whole layer where it's at. So it's like almost like an undo, just history you can see by going to the layers I've shut off. So originally I had a pose where Elektra had both of her legs kind of pulled up, kind of floating above, almost like Trinity in the Matrix, and having her sides pointed down. And so the big change between this version and that, like at this sketch here, Trevor says, working on inks, speak loud. By the way, yeah, let me know if the sound is down or off. Yeah, he also says in terms of keeping the finger condom for keeping the digital from reacting. At this point, I had figured out, I basically was working mostly on Snake Eyes' pose through all of the sketches up till now. And then the next one was me sitting here and trying to figure out what I want to do with Elektra. And at one point, I just decided that her pose feels more like her if she has her sides pointed out and downward, as opposed to her having them kind of to the side and below, like lunging at him. So I changed that. And I also messed around with her actual scale. Like when I first drew her body, she was actually a little bit taller than she should be. And I kind of was shrinking her down a bit. So I wanted her to feel long and lean and muscular. And it's a real delicate balance to make somebody who feels incredibly muscular, but still, lean. I didn't want her to feel bulky. I just wanted her to feel like she would mess you up. I think I got that with her body type. I'm still refining it a little bit, but I'm pretty happy with how it's come out. But prior to that, most of this was messing around with Snake Eyes And let me see, before that, you can see that it's just less refined. It's, you know, I didn't have the grenades drawn onto his, and all the straps. I didn't have the Uzi added on. The hand position was a little wonkier, or just, it was like, it was just sort of, you know, blopped in there. It wasn't really well defined. Let me see. That's just some sketches. Those don't have anything to do with the Snake Eyes thing. All right. So let's carry on from here. And one thing I did want to do with Snake Eyes was draw a little bit more tread into his feet and his shoes. But let's see here with Elektra. Oh yeah, the last thing I was working on is I was erasing her hand. I originally had her wrist going straight out, but I feel like there's a little more power. There's something about making this subtle bend that I've got right where it's going up, then her wrist just turning a tiny bit. There's something about that that felt like it added a little oomph to her. And it also added more of like I'm trying to get the feeling with the size of like a snake's fangs coming in at Snake Eyes. Just, you know, Snake Eyes is such a badass that it's challenging to try and have a character look like they're actually menacing him. But that's what I'm going for here. I think also part of the reason why I wanted to angle the hand a little bit is so that it wouldn't seem as awkward, the pose that I've got her hand in. I didn't want it to, because I'm trying to angle it so that subconsciously you've got both of the size pointing at Snake Eyes' head. Maybe make these a little bit, I don't want to make them too large. Maybe just have them bulge out here at the base. But there's also something interesting that I think I've discovered, and I don't know how to navigate it going forward, but it's something I want to attempt, which is when I was doing the thumbnail, well, not thumbnails, this whole thing is a layout drawing. But when I was tightening up the Snake Eyes part of the drawing below, when I got to this state, before I started working on refining Elektra, I was looking at this and I realized that for the most part, pardon me, I'll take a sip of coffee. I see Martin's in the chat. Hey, hey, hey. Thanks for joining us. I'm doing some fan art here. Snake Eyes versus Elektra. And something I realized when I pretty much, you know, was winding up this the Snake Eyes part down here is that I generally, and I think this is true for a lot of artists, I think I prefer my rough drawings and my sketches to the final piece. I know for a lot of artists, that problem of tightening up too much and the final drawing coming out stiff is an issue. But I really liked the energy that Snake Eyes had, and I feel like getting that energy into my final drawings is probably the thing that I struggle with the most. And what I want to start trying to figure out how to do is how to make my finished drawings look as much like my thumbnails. I mean, not thumbnails per se, but look as much like my rough drawings as possible. So in the end, it's not necessarily that I want to polish this when I go to inking it. It's more that I want to do as little as possible to the ink drawing and have it still feel like all of the energy that this layout sketch has. So that's my new goal, because I, you know, like I said, my favorite part of the illustration phase, really thumbnailing is my favorite part. But once I move into the layout drawings, I am happier with my layout drawings than I am with whatever the final illustration turns out to be. And that's also true with the Medusa piece. So at some point, I am probably going to do another version of that same image and just do it with trying to make it feel more like a drawing. because I'm pleased with how it came out, but it's me doing digital painting as opposed to me drawing, which I think really is more of my forte. Changing Elektra's hand a little bit just so that the sigh actually makes sense fitting in there. Let's see here. Martin says, I've had those same issues with layouts versus finished work. Yeah, it's an ongoing struggle for a lot of creatives. But I think what I've never leaned into, and when I was looking at this particular drawing, I was thinking, I'm just looking at them all, what would happen if I just tried to do less? What would happen if when I went to ink this, I did as little as possible? Not in a lazy sense, but just trying to basically only clean it up enough that it no longer feels like a rough drawing. So somehow trying to make it both feel finished and rough at the exact same time. And we'll see how that goes. You know, actually, while I've got you guys on here with the live stream, let me see. Trevor, I actually have a question for you because I was inking with, where are they? Those Winsor Newton brushes. Let me see, where are the caps for these? So, you know, I was using Series 7 Winsor Newtons, and I'm wondering if the Series 7 has a couple of different types of points, because for this one, I actually found that the tip just wasn't as long as I'd like. And I feel like it's not giving me a nice smooth point. Whereas like with a Raphael, or even like if I compare this number to, I know you love the, you know, the fact that I use these cheap ass Dick Blick pens and even brushes, and even this brush, the tip is more frayed than the Winsor Newton. But when I have it wet, the number 2, this blue brush, these are the Dick Blick, the cheap brushes I've been using. Just the fact that it's like twice as long, for some reason, the longer brushes seem to give me a better point. So I don't know if it's the fact that instead of getting a 0 and a number 2 and a number 4, well, actually, let me grab the number 4. The number 4 still feels kind of short and stubby. If I compare the 3 of these, so at the top is the Winsor Newton 4, the middle is the Winsor Newton number 2, and then the bottom is the Dick Blick brush. And it's just the fact that the brushes seem a little bit stubbier, and I'm wondering if maybe instead of a Winsor Newton, because I've been used to brushes where the actual brush outside the ferrule is a little bit longer, maybe I should look into getting some Raphaels. I don't know if you've tried inking with Raphael brushes or not, but I was watching Sean Crystal's YouTube channel, and he was working with a Raphael, and that one looked like the way that I had thought the Winsor Newton brushes were going to be. So I don't know. I'm going to try inking this piece when I print it out with the Winsor Newtons, but I bring it up only because I've gotten kind of used to that longer brush giving me a kind of, but it feels nice to me for some reason. Like it allows me to kind of glide the brush along the surface. And I don't know, this feels a little bit more like it's giving me a blunter tip with these particular Winsor Newtons. But also, I know that Winsor Newtons are not the way they used to be anymore. Like over the past few years, they're different than, you know, not being made from real sable. You know, the quality I think I've heard from other people is not the same as like the Winsor Newtons of previous decades. So let's see. Ah, I see Joe's in the chat. Says, always love watching you sketch, Jeremy. It's so awesome that you share your process. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Well, you know, I love sketching, and it is nice to just have company while I'm working on a piece and be able to talk through it. So yeah, just putting some little dome on the end of Elektra's sigh here. I don't know the name. Is it a pommel? Is that what goes on the end of the hand, the end of the handle of the sword? You think somebody who draws comics would have better better weapon knowledge? I've got books that reference it. You know, I like making that longer, but I should actually shorten it only because I want to give the sense that you're looking at both her hand and the sigh kind of at a foreshortened perspective. Just little things like that, you know, making sure that it's not sticking out too far, that will help sell the perspective of the piece. So if I actually make this more like we're looking at the end of the cylinder, and I try to draw it so that we're looking more up at it. I'm just trying to change it like that to try and help sell that this worm's eye view that we have of her coming down to try and bring some pain to Snake Eyes. There we go. Martin says pommel sounds right. Glad something sounds right. You know what's funny is when I started sketching this, I intentionally started drawing it small, thinking that I was actually going to fill this page with thumbnails of different versions of the pose, because that's usually what I do. Is I just will try 3, 4, 5 poses and look at all of them as I'm drawing until I get them right. But when I started drawing Snake Eyes, pretty early on, I was pretty sure this is the pose I wanted with Snake Eyes. And as I showed you with those layers that I turned off, I just refined the Snake Eyes pose, so I was happy with it, and then started refining the Electro pose. So I mean, that's pretty much my process. Is just, you know, really loose thumbnail in the main idea of the pose, and then work on it until it's so I'm happy with it. Unless you think that I work without reference, I was flipping around as I was doing this and trying to decide what version of her costume I wanted to give her, how long to make her the sleeves on her gloves, where I want to have them going all the way up the wrist. And I was flipping back and forth between these are Bill Sienkiewicz's thumbnails, his layout of Elektra. I was going back and forth between her and Frank Miller's Electro, which is down here somewhere. Oh, I've just got another tab with it open. Frank Miller's Electro. So I was kind of basically going back and forth between these two in terms of her costume. And originally, when I drew her, I didn't even draw her with with the skull cap, the red skull cap. I had forgotten that, and I just had her with like a huge mane of dark hair. And probably I got a bit outrageous with it because I had the mane going all the way down her back. And realistically, I should probably have it somewhere around here. And it's just a matter of trying to position it so it doesn't make, it's not so much a tangent, but I want to if I'm going to have Elektra's glove and just above the elbow, I want to have the hair crossing through in this area of skin. You know, her glove is here. The part of her suit that's covering her shoulder is here. So I'm trying to make it so that her hair lands in between those, so that there's an area of contrast visually. And it's funny, I haven't even started really working out the shading yet, which I should do before I start inking this piece. Because if her hair is going to be a large mass of flat black, that's going to affect how I render the shade on her costume. Like, for instance, I just loosely sketched in her serratus muscles in there. Those probably aren't going to be visible. I put a little seam in here from underneath the armpit. She's probably not going to have that either visible in the final. Let's see here. Martin says, with a picture like this, I pick a winner first. Yeah, well, see, that's the thing. That's what I actually intended. Is I was going to just do a bunch of thumbnails until I had what I thought was a winner. And very rarely do I end up going with whatever my first pose is. But for the most part, other than the fact that Elektra's pose changed from, where is that other layer? From this to that, other than those changes, it's pretty rare for me to stick with what is essentially my first pose. But I really like the composition, and I redrew the angle and the position of Elektra's hips and how close her legs were. But I really like the way that the two characters, the line between them, kind of like Elektra is framing Snake Eyes. On the brush topic, Trevor says, I use the Winsor Newton Series 7 Kolinsky Sable watercolor brush, round number 3, or professional sable by Winsor Newton. There's a pointed round which has longer bristles but less snap. The longer bristles might be what I need, because I think what you're saying when you said less snap is just that it's a more rigid brush as opposed to a brush that really, you might be saying the opposite, that it might be just a softer brush. But for me, I find that having a brush that has, I think with snap, you're probably talking about the spring that a brush will have, similar to a drawing with a crow quill. But yeah, I do like a brush that's stiff, and that's kind of what these the cheap brushes that I've been using from Dick Blick were. I think it had like it was a long, rigid, so it was like I was drawing almost with a nib. Let's see here. It says, I like a little more resistance for control of the bristle. Yeah, I guess I do need to look into, let's see. Martin mentioned, well, I'll come back to your comment in a second, Martin, but let me throw that up there. Trevor also says, this isn't the comment I'm reading now, but Trevor says, I only use the one size for everything, though, either a 3 or a 4, and they point up really well. He says, I think you're looking for the pointed round by the sound of it. Yeah, so that may be the case. I might need to dive in and look at some more Winsor Newtons. I was curious if you had tried any Raphaels and what your thoughts were on them. Because just from watching other people inking pieces, the Raphael looks like it might fit my inking style a little bit better. Like the brush just looks like a nicer version of the brushes I've already been using. So I may dabble with those. And Martin says, did you know that Elektra is the new Daredevil while Matt Murdock is in jail? I did not know that. But, well, actually, I have not been reading it, but I saw something about that on Comic Book Resources. There were, this article just talking about the new issue. It sounds interesting. It sounds worth checking out. I may pick that up. I haven't actually read any of Chip Zdarsky's work yet, but he becomes highly recommended. So, and I'm not sure who's drawing that series, but I mean, they generally get pretty good artists for Daredevil, so. It is worth checking out. It sounds interesting. I mean, obviously, we've seen ever since Bucky came back, it's like there's no such thing as a character staying dead. See, this is the real challenge here. I want to do stuff like just enhancing the curve of her bicep. I still want her to feel long and lean. And looking at this, I think I may have made her raised arm a little bit, well, it's not necessarily that it's too long. I just have this one. The challenge I'm trying to get is there's supposed to be a little bit, not much, but a little bit of foreshortening in the arm that's bent. And I think that's the reason why, well, you know, I made it shorter, but I'm not conveying that the direction that this arm is going. And without conveying the direction, it does come off feeling stubby. So the challenge is how to get this to visually curve. Maybe if that line in there, that curve of the forearm, I think will help sell it as long as I don't close it off. And by close it off, I mean complete that curve so that it feels like it's a separate, the glove is ending there. And I probably should thicken up this line just to enhance the fact that this is the end of the glove. It's just kind of subtle shape work to try and make the volumes feel like they're moving in the directions I want them to. Let's see here. Oh, I see. When I had said that Martin mentioned when he was talking about, usually when he starts these poses, he tries to pick a winner. He was talking about not picking a winner in terms of the pose, but picking who's going to be the winner of the fight. You know what? That's a good point. I intentionally wanted to draw this where this is the point right before they're even getting into it. They're not even messed up yet. It is just the point of contact, and you kind of feel like you could be rooting for either character. When I do a versus, I don't do too many, but when I do a versus piece, I like to feel like the result is not a foregone conclusion. I feel like if I can visually imply that either character could take this fight, that helps kind of, for me, I'm actually trying to capture the tension of not knowing who's going to win. So I'm not sure if you meant that kind of it helps you to draw to know in your head who's going to win. But for me, what I'm going for is that sense of the unknown. Because I think that most people, I mean, it really depends on whether you're a G.I. Joe fan or not. Because if you're not a G.I. Joe fan and you're and you've been reading Marvel comics, you're just going to assume it's like, of course, Elektra's got supernatural abilities. You know, she's going to be able to kick the crap out of any other ninja. Whereas, you know, if you've read any G.I. Joe comics for any period of time, you know, Snake Eyes, you're like, Snake Eyes is pretty much going to beat, you know, anybody who's not superpowered. You think Snake Eyes would probably lose to Wolverine only because of the healing factor, but other than that, you're like, he would still give Wolverine a run for his money. Snake Eyes is just such a badass. So I really like the idea of, depending on who you would root for personally, you look at this piece and you see it as, oh, if you're an Elektra fan, you're like, oh, this is Elektra about to kick Snake Eyes' ass. Or if you're a Snake Eyes fan, you're like, this is Snake Eyes about to kick Elektra's ass. All right, I don't want to get too belabored in her glove there. I mean, at this point, I feel like it is mostly going the way I want it to go. I'm kind of saving her face for last, only because if I get everything else on the body working, then I can just sit down and just work the face until the face feels right. because there is, I think, a tendency for a lot of artists. We start with the head, we start with the face, we draw that and we like it. And then we go on, we draw the body, and it takes forever to get the body right. And a lot of times you'll realize, you know what, this pose just isn't working. I need to change this. But you will stick with a face or a head that doesn't work because you already, well, you'll stick with a body that doesn't work. You'll keep trying to contort it to fit that head, when really what you should have done was get the body pose right and then just take however long it takes to get the because you're going to spend a lot of time on heads or faces anyway. So if you're going to do that, then you might as well try to get the body working, and then you're just working the head into, you know, working the head to fit that body. It feels like I get better results working that way than I do by starting with the head or the face. So just as a matter of my personal habits, I tend to leave the heads and the faces for last. I kind of look at it like like saving your dessert for last. Let's see here. Trevor mentions on the brush conversation, the Rofs are great brushes, but I prefer the professional line, honestly. Said, honestly, it's the shape of the handle. The sable hair is pretty consistent throughout the line. Okay. Good to know. Martin says, Snake Eyes is the man. And Trevor says, this is my preferred brush, the Winsor Newton Professional Watercolor Sable Round, number 4, $14.95 on Amazon. Second would be the Kolinsky line. Maybe I will grab one of those too. Maybe I'll grab one of those and a Raphael and do a little bit of a comparison. It says, stiffer, scratchier roll will be the round, looser, softer will be the pointed round. Thank you for all of that information. I mean, see, I knew that you would be the man who'd have the knowledge on the brush tip. You know, and it's weird that I'm spending all this time trying to figure out, you know, different brushes to use, experiment with that, when I already said, like, my next comic book's going to be digital. But part of that is I intend to keep doing ink drawings, whether it's pieces of fan art or me just doing one-off illustrations. I intend to keep doing ink work so I don't lose that skill of inking traditionally while I'm, you know, playing around in the digital realm. And who knows, I might still do ink drawings for my covers. You know, and what's interesting, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but in drawing this, I was looking, go back to my reference, looking at the Elektra drawings. Ah, that's what it was. Because Frank Miller, well, there's different versions of it. There's versions of Elektra where she's got her, it's not even boots. They're just wraps around her legs, but they end calf length, which was how I saw Sienkiewicz at it. But I think I actually like it when they're going up to her thigh instead, going all the way past her knee. Originally, when I started drawing her, I think the reason why I left her her skull cap on is because my favorite Electra comic is Electra Lives Again, and really, my Electra was kind of based off of this version, this version from Frank Miller. So I think, given that, I'm going to lean into. I'm going to change her her boots, instead of having them calf length. I'm going to make them up through her thighs. So again, I think I mentioned this when I was talking to, I can't remember who I was talking to. I think I was talking to Negro Frazetta on the art book study group for Patreon. But we were talking about tangents, and he didn't really know what a tangent was, and I told him to remember that the night that we were doing art book study group, I told him, remember this night and write it down. And when I say this, Trevor's gonna be like, yeah, I know what you mean. I told him, once I explained it to him, I said, mark this date, because now you will remember life before tangents and life after tangents. Because once you see tangents, you will never be able to stop seeing them. And I told him your entire life as an artist will now be trying to hunt down and snuff them out. because they're everywhere and you're constantly trying to not make them get in the way. And I just thought of that because for me here, I'm trying to place the, I want this to actually be higher upper thigh, but I think if I do this down here, just above the knee, my main thing is the little piece of fabric that hangs down from her swimsuit. In fact, I should just fill this in here. Her bodysuit. I don't want to call it a swimsuit. But that piece of fabric that's coming down, I don't want it I don't want the boot to be creating a tangent here. So I want to have it end below where this is coming, you know, from between her legs to down outside of her legs. I also need to make this little piece over here a little bit larger. But yeah, I think for all you guys, you can remember, like, once you learned, I'm curious if you guys can distinctly remember when you learned what a tangent was. Because I know for me, well, I don't remember this specific date. It was probably sometime in high school. I think I had gone to a local comic convention, and I had a creator look at my work, and they were pointing out and showing me what tangents were, because my work had a lot of them. And once I understood that and I started seeing, oh my God, they're everywhere. And if you don't pay attention, you'll just keep drawing things that are running into each other in awkward ways, awkward places. So for me, just learning what a tangent was a fundamental shift for me as an artist. But now it's like, oh, I've signed up for a battle that I will never, ever finish. I'm constantly hunting. Looking for tangents is like a writer looking for typos. They're always there, no matter how much you try to root them all out, and you check for them, and you flip the page, and you double check, and you have other people look, hey, you see any tangents? You know, but there's always somewhere, you know, one of them sneaks in. That is probably one of the biggest things in terms of me finishing a piece. The largest part of my finishing process is me hunting down and trying to correct tangents. So, you know, life before tangents, life after tangents. Let's see here. Martin agrees. The thigh high for the boots. Trevor says, "See, you're going to brush, and I want to turn to a dip pen for my book." Yeah, you know, it's funny. It's all of these things. I think anytime we use something for too long, we like to shake things up just to see how it affects us. I know for me, the first graphic novel that I drew, that Eye of the Gods comic, I drew all of that with a speedball nib. So it wasn't a crow quill, but it was one of the larger, more calligraphy nibs. But I think my dad had a whole bunch of them from his early art days. And I just went through until I found a couple of points from the calligraphy nibs that gave me the line that I wanted. It was kind of a thicker marker kind of line. And yeah, once I found the ones I was using, I stuck with those for years. But yeah, with Morningstar, the brushes finally started coming together for me. Let's see. Trevor says tangents are a source of therapy sessions for cartoonists. They're like evil Pokemon. Gotta kill them all. He says, I'm still awful with tangents. You know, like I said, right there, I was trying to, I think that I am in the process of improving with tangents. In terms of at this stage, you know, in the layout stage, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about just moving parts of the composition to avoid the tangents, and just seeing, like, the fact that I can see this and say, oh, if I change her costume like this, have it, instead of going all the way up her thigh, have the boot being lower in the thigh, just to avoid a tangent. You know, right here, the fact that I've got like her butt cheek that's kind of hidden, I actually changed the position of it so that it's falling dead in the center of her heel, as opposed to being too close to either the front or back edge of her heel. The only problem is now her heel is too thick. But either way, trying to place, well, I think I'm gonna have to move it up a little bit more because now that I look at this, this heel is just too thick. I have to correct that. But the idea that I'm thinking in terms of compositionally, just moving elements around in the rough stage to try and, you know, kill tangents before they take hold and take root. Because God forbid you get something that you really, really like in the drawing, but you realize that there's a really big tangent you didn't catch, and you have to destroy the thing that you actually liked in order to get rid of that tangent. That I've done it before, and it's one of the worst feelings. Like you almost feel like, I just want to start from scratch. And for those who don't know, people may be watching and you actually don't know what a tangent is. So I'm going to show you real quick because I can display it really easily. So we're looking here at Elektra's thighs and her heel. Now, when I originally drew the leg that's up, I originally drew her buttock coming down into the thigh. Now, realistically, it's actually, if I draw through, it's curving all the way through like that. That's what's happening if you were to just remove her ankle and her foot. Now, if you look, if I remove those lines and I just draw that, what happens is you've got this line of her buttock going right into the heel. And it's not a particularly egregious tangent, only because there's sort of a Y here. Like all these things are splitting in different directions. But if I were to draw it so that it was coming in like that, or coming down so that it almost seemed like it just blended in with her heel, what those things do is it makes it hard to tell. It eliminates the differentiation between what object is in front of each other. That's what tangents are. Tangents are bad overlapping forms. And when they overlap poorly, you can't tell what's in front, what's in behind. It creates a visual confusion. And that's why I was making such a big deal out of trying to place the line, even though it's a very small line, but that line of the buttock, to place it dead center in the middle of the heel. That way, you very clearly can tell that that anatomical form is behind her heel. So, you know, that's a quick example of a tangent for anybody who does not know. Although actually looking at this now, I realize I should actually probably pull this. It's a tangent there, but I should pull it to this side a little bit more. And that feels a little bit better. You know, and instead of drawing all of that inside ankle, I should probably just put just a couple of curved lines down there. Got a little bit too much detail going on in the ankle here. I need to streamline this. And this is another thing. It's actually, I think we go through a phase of trying to overly detail things, and then first we don't draw enough detail because we don't have enough anatomical information. Then I think as artists, we go through a phase where once we learn a little bit of anatomy, we're trying to put every bone and muscle in a drawing. And then we're at the phase that I'm at now, which is I have yet to master the art of eliminating unnecessary detail, but I'm aware that I don't need to put every muscle in there. And it's a lot of trial and error for me, where I will put some anatomical detail in, and then I'll see whether it clutters it, whether it clarifies things. I'm like, do I need this in here? Should I remove it? And so that's kind of the phase artistically where I'm at now, where I'll add in detail and then try to reduce and subtract until I'm like, okay, that's just enough. Let's see here. Amar is like, okay, me? No, never see no tangents. Oh, God. It's the Ode to the Tangent Hunters. Yeah, I dedicate this live stream is dedicated to all the dads for Father's Day and all the tangent hunters. Long may you hunt. All right, I can just erase this line in here is just me kind of working out the position of where her her bones were going to be structurally. So this one, even though her leg that's down, her left leg, I've got the boot ending lower just above the knee. On the right leg, I can put it coming all the way up higher into the thigh. So they can be different lengths. And then I can also up here, danger. Do I really want to do this? Nah, I think that's distracting. Let's just leave that out. Actually, here's an idea. Let's do that on the other leg so that she's got just above the knee on this one, but then also has the additional band that's running around higher in her thigh. I'm trying to use it to also help describe anatomy, as opposed to it just being a circle, like it's wrapped around a cylinder, to have this double curve in there to indicate her thigh muscles. And that's something that it's taken me years to learn, and I'm still working on improving it. But using clothing to properly describe the anatomy, or at least to enhance my anatomical descriptions. Let's see here. I don't want to get too caught up in working on the tonal work, but at this point, I think that other than streamlining this foot, I'm still not happy. Not only am I not happy with this foot, I actually think this foot is too big, and that might be the big problem. But this foot just feels too lumpy. So I'm trying to give it another go. Let's make it a little bit smaller. And now this may mess up all of that work that I was talking about in terms of avoiding tangents, but I really need to shrink her heel. I feel like her heel is too large. This is one of those cases of removing detail, simplifying it. And I also want to try and give the sense of a little bit of a very, very thin sole on the heel of her boot. So I'm trying to get a nice fluid flow all the way up from her calf down to her foot. So it's not a straight leg, but I want the bending to be very subtle and to feel fluid. And that feels a little bit nicer, but now I've also lost the foreshortening because I've turned it to more of a profile instead of looking on top. So these lines, these cross contour lines I'm putting in here, they're not going to be there in the finished one, but this is to try and help me find, because that center line of the shin should be running down here. So this is just to help me try and correct my volumes. Dropping a center line on something is really good for that. So I can try and make it, see, when I erased before and drew it in, I turned it into too much of a profile foot. When really we should be looking, it's an interesting angle because it is a 3/4 angle, but it's also a 3/4 looking down the length of her lower leg. So it's a little bit tricky dimensionally. And putting some cross contours on there, well, that should help me find what I'm doing. And if I thin this sole out, make it really thin, I think I made it too thick there. It's not thin because the sole is thin. It's thin because I want you to feel like you're looking, like you're just barely seeing the edge of that sole because it's mostly turned away from you. And now, with all of that shaping, I'm going to come in here and draw in the underside of the glutes. And actually, at this point, I think I erased enough of her ankle that this should be coming in like that. And now that I have done that, I'm going to put some cross contours back in here and try and spend a lot of time trying to thin out this lower calf, and now it's a little bit too thin. You know, I do this sometimes. I'll just draw a lot of detail. Like I said, I'll draw in a lot of detail and then draw it, erase it, and then draw it in and erase it, trying to find just the right forms and volumes. And it's not necessarily that I feel like I want to belabor this process and draw it out and that whole thing of, it's not that I feel like I want to be a perfectionist. It's that I want to improve my instinctual ability to draw these things. Because I feel like if I know that it's not right and I don't take the time to fix it, I'm not going to get better. So I'm taking the time to really rework these forms and volumes to depict them correctly in the hopes that I can start drawing things faster but still get them correct. Right now, I can draw things correctly, but it takes, for me, usually a lot of time, a lot of drawing and erasing and refining until I get it just the way just the way it should be. So we are getting near the top of the hour, and I have some Father's Day plans with the family a little bit later. So unlike other live streams, we're probably not going to go extra long. So I'm going to draw for maybe another 5 or 10 minutes and then wrap it up. So if anybody has any questions or comments, stuff they want to chime in on, now is your time because we'll be wrapping it up shortly. And by the way, for anybody that came in later, the Medusa piece that I had been working on for the past couple of weeks, that piece is done. You can see it at the in the replay, but there's a link to the piece, the finished piece, in the description for this video. So if you guys want to go and see how that turned out, I showed it on the camera at the start of the live stream, but you can go to the description link and just click on that. It's called Gorgon Shadow, and it is up now for sale as a print on my store. So I guess the real challenge here is just I'm drawing this at an angle that you don't usually look at the foot from, because both of these are angles where you're looking at the foot, basically as if you were standing near the top of the shin and looking down at them. I don't want to make her ankle feel too bulky. That's another problem I have, is I tend to bulk up the joints a little bit too much. Which is weird because the joints are actually the place where there's no muscles. The muscles reach across the joints to pull whatever limb closer or, extend it, If anything, the joint should be a pinch point. But I find that I kind of bulk them up a little bit for some subconscious reason. I don't know. But being aware of these tendencies hopefully leads me towards learning how to eliminate them. Right here, another tangent, the line running down the back of her swimsuit, and I've got it just running into her thigh. And this one's tricky because I do want her, I wanted to give that sense of her torso running down into the back of her thigh. So it's a thin line in terms of creating this little wedge right here where you've got her back muscles running down, but you've also got, it's almost like I've got the sides of her bodysuit cut so high up that they're really going way up above her thigh. Because really, the muscle, the bone, her hip bone is going to be down here somewhere. So this is going up well above her belt line. It's cutting up pretty high, like a high slitted dress. And I also probably, her inner thigh muscles, the adductor muscles, I've probably got those a little bit too large. You know what? This, I think, is getting into nitpicking territory. Well, it's not really nitpicking territory if the anatomy is wonky. All right, I should probably draw her face in. All this time I've been spending doing all this other stuff on the body, and I never even finished her other side. When I started this piece, I started by working on the size. Let's see. Bob Point is in the chat. Says, yo! Thanks for popping in, man. Let's see. Martin says, happy Father's Day. Yeah, happy Father's Day to all those to all those dads out there. Much love. Trevor says, got me all distracted talking about brushes. Way to appeal to my tools fetish, Jeremy. Well, I'm sneaky that way. They say know your audience. Come on, we're all art tool junkies. And it's funny because we know that when maybe when younger artists ask us, what pencil are you using, what brush are you using? On one hand, we're like, don't worry about the tools, just learn the fundamentals. But then amongst professionals, we're all the same way. Where it's like, oh, how are you getting this effect with that? Using this, using that. But I think part of that is because, usually when we're talking amongst our peers, we've gotten past that whole idea of it's the tool and not the hand that controls it. So then when we're talking about what different tools are we using and what effects we're getting, it's less about, oh, this is going to make me a good artist. And it's more of what effect do you want the work to have? So, it's really when you're saying what Photoshop brush are you using, what physical brush are you using, it's down to, I see an effect that I want here. How do you get that effect? And it's not, oh, that effect is going to make me a good artist. It's really just a matter of, well, how well are you going to use that effect? But yeah, we still ask the same questions. Like, what brush are you using? What tool is that? Where'd you get that? You know, whenever you have a friend who's traveled to Japan and they come back from overseas with a bunch of like pens and art tools they only picked up over there, was like, ooh, ah. They always seem to have like magical brushes and pen tools in Japan. It's interesting. Maybe because of their high regard for manga as a medium. Or maybe just everything they make, they try to make with quality. Could be both. Yeah, I'm gonna have to refine these size a little bit. They are a little bit funky. I think because I'm rushing. Yeah, I shouldn't need to rush. I'll take my time with them. So right now, it's really just a matter of me blocking in her nose. I'm gonna raise her cap a little bit just so I can put those bangs she has. Which I don't know if she even has bangs in like the current marble iteration of her. I'm just sort of, I'm not going to make her eye sockets that pronounced, but I do like to block them in before drawing. The other features, I'm going to try and just give her a very straight Greek nose. Have the bridge, nice and prominent. Just put her mouth in here. I think I'm going to try and give her just a very serious expression. I'm not going to have her snarling because she's sort of a dispassionate, cold-blooded assassin. Just a grim, straight. But maybe try to just get the anger in just making her eyes sort of maybe give one side of her face a little bit of a pull. Too many lines. Her face is becoming a little bit masculine. So I'm going to have to come in and refine that. I think part of that will be me erasing a lot of these lines around the eye. That was really more for me to kind of fit her skull in. But realistically, I kind of want to make her eyes just narrow with thick eyelashes and having her eyebrows coming down. Really thicken them up at the edges. It is challenging to try and soften up her features and keep them feeling feminine while still making her look angry. Because those lines that add that intensity also break up. Give her a little bit more cheekbone. A little bit more cheekbone. Bring her chin to more of a point. It's a little bit too square jawed. All right. There's still some work to be done here in terms of her face. I don't think that that first pass is that great. But like I said, I do all this other stuff so that I can just sit down and work at the face until I'm happy with it. You know, get everything else working right, and then come in and just do the face. And to be honest, I probably really need to go just as simple as possible, because when I do ink this piece, it's only going to be a 9 by 12. It's not going to be like an 11 by 17 or 11 by 14. It's going to be a pretty small drawing. So ink-wise, I'm not going to be able to get in there and really noodle the face. So, all right. Let's see. Last couple of comments here. Amar says, I think it's because the handwriting itself is an art form. I forget what I was talking about in terms of, you know, writing, but in terms of pens, that's what it was. Because the handwriting in itself is an art form. In terms of Japanese pens and brushes and such, yes, that's what was in relationship to. I go on tangents. Sometimes I go back and I look at the comments and I forget what's going on. I lose the thread of the plot. Trevor says, is there any artist out there that doesn't have 15 tools around their desks that they almost never use? Word. And there's, over my shoulder, there's like a bunch of different bins that I have, and half of them are filled with pens, markers, brushes, pencils, although they aren't ones that I never use. They're just sort of the overflow that I have. Because what I do is whenever I'm running low, meaning like less than 2 of something or 2 or 3 of something, I'll go and I'll buy more. So that if there ever is a point where an art tool that I really love stops being manufactured, then I will have time to figure out what my go-to switch is going to be before that runs out. Ballpoint has a good comment up here. And he says, you have to be good, at least, you have to be good, not at least to have the tools to affect the outcome, the work, like it's a race car driver. It's like a race car driver, how fast you can, but it's not how fast you can, but also how you can control the tool to maximize out, my 2 cents. So yes, very true. It's not just a matter of having a fast car. It's about knowing how to drive it and control it. Very true for the art tools there. All right. So yeah, this piece is still in progress. Maybe I'll start inking it in the middle of the week. Maybe I'll be done with it by then. Because I have to imagine by the time I finish this, the whole point of this, the reason why this is my favorite phase of making any illustration is because I'm working out all the problems. Inking really is just putting on some music and relaxing and zoning out, because by the time I'm printing this out on Bristol, I will have intentionally I will have fixed any drawing problems. So it really is just sit down, relax, and finish the thing. That's all it is. So yeah, I tend to work out all the stuff beforehand, and that's also an artistic choice. Some people who ink themselves leave a lot of drawing to be done on the page, and they really just rough out the basic volumes. I've worked both ways, and I enjoy working both ways. So there may be other pieces I'll do, and I'll intentionally leave it a lot looser than even this, and do a lot of the working out and solving I'm doing in the end. But for some reason, for this page, it feels like there's a lot for me to fix and solve at this stage. So Ballpoint says, sorry about the gurgled message, attention divided over here. Hey, no worries. I mean, obviously, I'm drawing and talking to you guys at the same time, so my attention's divided too. But, if you've watched other live streams, we keep it casual around here. It's very much just sort of like art shop talk, chit chat while we're all hopefully working or creating or doing whatever. So it's all good. I'm just glad you showed up and hung out. I'm glad you made a good, added a good comment to the conversation. So anybody watching the replays, feel free to leave comments on the video. Again, I've got the little banner underneath there. I don't say it enough. Please like the videos, share them. If you're not subscribed to the channel, subscribe. Helps me grow and expand my audience and my reach. So I greatly appreciate that. And hopefully I'm providing things that are at least entertaining, if not educational or interesting. And on that note, if you would like to support this channel, you can go to patreon.com/GERIMI. You get to see all my comic books before anyone else. You get bonus live streams once a month. And these are usually an hour long. The art book study groups are 2 to 3 hours long. Sometimes I've gone 4 hours a couple of times. And I've been doing those twice a month. So there's like more than twice the amount of content that's on the public live stream that's available just for patrons. It's a Patreon exclusive. So it's patreon.com/GERIMI. If you'd like to sign up for my monthly newsletter, you get a free digital sketchbook. I send out a newsletter once a month, including some comic book pages, what I'm working on, work in progress, animated GIFs, what I'm reading. I take kind of the best of the stuff that I share on Twitter and Instagram and just put it all in a nice little package and just deliver it right to you once a month. And also, you know, I let you know when I've got new books for sale, new events, you know, I'll be attending. You know, obviously this past year was a horrible year for events, but, you know, hopefully in the future, conventions will be coming back. And again, if you would like to pick up physical copies of my comics, you can pick up my standalone psychological thriller graphic novel, Eye of the Gods. It's about a man cursed with visions he cannot control. Black and white book, 144 pages. All done by me. Written, lettered, inked, gray tones, 100% indie production. Same with volume 1 of Morningstar, Lucifer's Fall from Heaven, told as a Western. This book contains issues 1 through 4 of an 8-issue series. You can get all of those on in print, or you can get them digitally on Kindle or Comixology. By the way, I'll be sending out a notice next week. You can pick up the final issue of Morningstar will be available not just on, it's already available on jeremy.net, but it will be available on Comixology next week. I'll send a link out, or I'll put a post on Facebook. I mean, not Facebook, on YouTube to let you guys know. But here is the final issue of Morningstar, issue 8. This bad boy is available in print right now. It'll be available on Comixology, as I said, later this week. All right, guys, thank you so much for all the great comments. Thanks for hanging out, spending time, all the great art conversation as usual. Oh, Trevor said, finally got my copy of Samurai. Awesome. You know what? I still need to finish the short story that I published in there, because I published the first 8 pages of a story called Samurai, about a girl who finds a haunted samurai sword. Maybe I should make that either something for the newsletter, or, well, I'll definitely make it. I got to put that out there so people can check that out. But yes, thank you for picking that up. I hope you enjoy all the other creators that are in there. A lot of great creators that are friends of mine, and we all have interesting takes on what it means to be a samurai. So thank you so much. And for everyone else, you know, that's it for now. Go be creative.